Welcome back to DSR. We're going to dive back into Crooked Moon because I didn't realize we were so close to finishing the spells. I thought there was so many more spells than there were. It turns out there are 40 spells. I've already covered 26 of them. We're going to finish the remaining 14. That math is correct. 14 spells. So this is going to go on the spells playlist and the Crooked Moon playlist. All right, we're going to go through the remaining 14 spells from Crooked Moon, then we'll be done with all the spells. I've highlighted the ones that we're going to do today, which are the ones I haven't done yet, right? So here we go. I Burn, a cantrip, which I do love cantrips. Cantrips just feel extra cool to me because they don't use a resource, which means you can use them all the time. So they feel more like class features than spells. I do have a tendency to collect cantrips, even though I don't end up using them all. I just love cantrips. Anyway, I Burn. So this one is a reaction cantrip, which is, so far of all the things I've covered, the only one in the game, I think. Certainly there's nothing published from WotC that is a reaction cantrip. The trigger is which you take when a creature you can see within range targets you with an attack. So it's when they target, but before the attack roll. Okay? So you do have to declare before they make the attack roll, although once you declare it, they still have to make the attack roll. Right? They can't say, oh, they cast a spell, so now I'm going to go for somebody else. You sting the eyes of a creature attacking you. The target must make a Constitution saving throw. A creature with blindsight or immunity to the blinded condition succeeds automatically, which was unnecessary probably. On a failed save, the target has the blinded condition, right? Or maybe it was necessary actually, until the end of the turn. So it's the end of the turn, which means this is incorrect. It's not a whole round. It's not till the end of their next turn. It's the end of this turn, right? They're attacking you, and it's the end of this current turn only. So a whole round is incorrect. On a successful save, it must subtract a 1d4 from the triggering attack roll. The target automatically succeeds on a save against your subsequent casting of the spell for 24 hours. So you can only use this once per creature for 24 hours, right? So you can use it a bunch of times on different creatures, but only once per creature for 24 hours, right? And I guess the reason they had to put this in there was to say, because otherwise you might fail the saving throw, but then you're immune to the blinded condition, and then the cantrip does nothing. So in this case, it's saying you automatically succeed on the saving throw if you are immune to the blinded condition, and if you succeed, then you still have the minus 1d4 on the triggering attack roll, even if you're immune to the blinded condition. So I guess that had an effect. So this is a pretty cool spell, pretty cool little cantrip, and the only thing that's wrong here is that 1 round duration. Otherwise, this thing is pretty solid, 30-foot duration. I think it's an A as far as cantrips go, but now that I've got these new columns in here for how things scale into tiers, I think it loses value as you go up in tiers, just because you gain more and better things to do with your reaction than use this cantrip. Although I would still say, if you're in one of those like less important combats where it's an easy fight, or maybe it's only a medium fight and you don't think you need to use a lot of resources, so you don't want to spend like a first level spell slot on shield spell or other things like that, then just using this is still a decent option. So if the choice is between using a resource cost reaction and a free reaction like this one, this is still a decent one to use sometimes. So I'd still say it's a B, and you might want to keep it around on your spell list. All right, then let's move on to Hungering Blade. This one is pretty cool. It's a 1 minute cast. It's a bonus, 1 minute duration, bonus action cast. It's only on yourself, but you can cast it on a weapon you are holding. So you have to be holding the weapon in your inventory, not just touch somebody else's weapon, or it's on your unarmed strike. So you can either buff yourself or the weapon you're holding. But since it's a weapon you're holding, that there says nothing about it ends if you hand it off. So you could cast it on a weapon in your inventory and then hand it to somebody else, and now they're benefiting from it. With Ravenous Negative Energy, for the duration when you hit a creature with an attack using the empowered weapon or unarmed strike for the first time on a turn, the target takes necrotic damage equal to your spellcasting ability modifier, so probably a +3 right now, scaling up to a +5, maybe a +7, depending on your capstone. Like you could get this with Shadow Touched feat on a monk, and monks get a +4 to their wisdom, which would be their spellcasting ability modifier for this. So they could have a +7 spellcasting ability modifier at level 20 from their capstone. All right, and you gain a number of temporary hit points equal to the necrotic damage dealt, which would be 3 for now, probably 5 by about level 12, and maybe a 7 if you're a monk, right? Which doesn't sound like a lot of temporary hit points, but this is renewing temporary hit points every single time you attack, right? So you're going to get it probably at least once per round, but you might benefit from it more than once per round. Like maybe you attack on one, make your first attack, you gain the temporary hit points, then you walk away from that creature, provoking an opportunity attack. They hit you, consume the temporary hit points, and then you hit somebody else, you get those temporary hit points again, same turn. You get the temporary hit points back again. And you can just keep moving between creatures, provoking opportunity attacks on purpose, making them waste it, and you keep absorbing all or most of the damage with your temporary hit points. At low levels, that might absorb all or most of it. At high levels, they're going to do 30, 40, 50 points of damage when they hit you, and, blocking 7 temporary hit points is not a big effect. It's going to add up, but it's not going to block most of it. So you probably wouldn't want to do that strategy of just walking away, provoking opportunity attacks on purpose, unless you have like some way like the speedy feat to cause disadvantage when they make an opportunity attack against you, because they have disadvantage and they're far less to hit. And then if they do hit, then you're going to block some of the damage with your temporary hit points. So I'm going to give this one an A. It's a B for tanks, because it is adding damage and threat. It's not adding like true tanking capabilities like taunting and different things like that. So it's nice for tanks, just not. I don't give it an A for tanks, but it's an A for most combat fighters, right? Most marshals. Give it a B for support, because you could cast it on, have somebody hand you their weapon, you cast it on that weapon, then hand it back to them. So it can be a good support thing. It's just not. I'm not going to give it an A because of the overhead of the action economy of them handing you the weapon, then you hand them back the weapon. That will take some action economy. And then an A for survival if you just use it yourself, right? Because you get this renewing temporary hit points that definitely will add up. And over the course of an adventuring day, probably reduce the amount of damage. It could easily reduce the amount of damage you're taking by, 30, 40, 50 points of damage over an entire adventuring day. So that is a good spell. It lasts 1 minute, so I don't think it can be abused too much. But for that 1 minute, you're going to be a powerhouse. This is dramatically better than the second level spell Magic Weapon and the third level spell Elemental Weapon. And this is the first level spell, which is one of the reasons why it's better. Okay, Chain of Conviction, not also first level spell. This is a second level spell, 1 minute duration, bonus action to cast as well, 30-foot range, somatic components only, which means you can cast it while hidden and it won't break your hidden state. You hurl a spectral barbed chain at a creature you can see within range. The target makes a strength saving throw. On a failed save, the target takes 2d6 force damage, is pulled up to 30 feet towards you, and is bound by the chain. While bound by the chain, the creature is tethered to you and can't move or teleport to a space more than 30 feet away from you, and you have advantage on attack rolls against that creature. On a successful save, the target takes half as much damage only. The bound target repeats the saves at the end of each of his turns, and the spell on itself on a success. And if you are ever more than 30 feet away from the target, the spell ends. And actually, this should get ratings here. I think like that. Maybe, I don't know. Let's leave it like that for now. Let me know what you think in the comments. But I almost forgot to rate it for frontliner and skirmisher who care about dealing range damage. Who care about dealing damage, because it does give you advantage on all of your attack rolls, which is a boost for them. And I only gave it a C for range because I was thinking the 2d6 damage is like a C's worth of range damage. But if you're a ranged attacker, right, either an Eldritch Blaster or somebody with a ranged weapon, getting advantage on all your attack rolls, pretty sweet. So it does take a spell slot. I don't know. This is like a B plus, maybe A minus for all of the attackers. It's like a B for tanks because it holds them near you, but it doesn't really do anything to encourage them to attack you. They just have to stay near you. Now, maybe you like move away from the rest of the party and kind of force this creature to be pulled away from the rest of the party. I mean, you can't actively pull them away from the party. You just might be able to move to a position where they can't attack anyone except you. Then they'd have to just run up to you and attack because they can't reach anybody else. That seems like a circumstantial situation. This might be an A for everyone else, though, because it's a bonus action cast to give yourself advantage for 1 minute. I don't think it's worth upcasting because that 1d6, that range damage you're doing once is just not worth the spell slot. That's not the reason you're casting the spell. It's the holding them within 30 feet of you and getting advantage in your attack rolls. All right. I talked myself into it. I'm going to give it an A for frontliner and skirmisher. Not necessarily an A for ranged damage dealers because they do want the advantage. They don't want the creature to be stuck within 30 feet of them, right? You want to be further away usually than that, which means I should call the spell an A overall. That feels more correct. Again, let me know in the comments what you think. All right, then we have Summer Winds, which is an interesting spell. All right, this is basically Burning Hands. It's a cone, 15 foot. But it only deals radiant damage to undead and does no damage to anyone else. The damage is less. It's 2d6, right? Burning Hands starts at 3d6, and it's a first level spell. So if you upcast Burning Hands to a second level spell like this is, it would do 4d6. So it's half as much damage as Burning Hands, and nobody ever said Burning Hands was a good blast spell. So as far as blast spells go, this is going to be a D because it's low damage and only one creature type. Now, it's one of the most common creature types, but it's still only one creature type. So it's going to be a D as a blaster spell. What's interesting about the spell is you can heal any allies in the cone are healed, which makes this like you could if there's like your frontliners are enmeshed in melee with a bunch of undead, you could just hit all of them, heal your allies, and damage the undead at the same time, which actually makes this a very interesting spell. I'm going to give it a B as a healing spell because it's 2d6 healing, but you would hit them in an area. So if you're out of combat and you want to heal people, and this is like you don't have prayer of healing, or you don't have enough time to cast prayer of healing, you don't have enough time to take a short rest, but you need an AoE heal, you could get members of your party, including yourself, because there is a rule for spellcasting that says that when you have an effect that emanates from you, that originates from you, like a cone or a line effect, you can include yourself in the area or not. It's your choice. So you would include yourself in this area, and you can line everybody up in the cone, space of the cone, and hit 6 creatures, you and your allies, and heal everybody for 2d6 points of healing. That's 7 points of healing for all 6 of you, which is more than you can get out of like aid. Aid could heal 3 of you for 5 hit points, right? So that's a total of 15 hit points of healing. This would give you 7 times 6, 42 points of healing for a second level spell slot. But the best healing scenario for it is out of combat, where you just perfectly line everybody up in the cone and then everybody gets healed. So it's like a better out of combat healing spell than it is a in combat healing spell. But if you upcast this thing, it upcasts by 2d6. That's the damage increases by 2d6 and the healing increases by 2d6. So I'm going to say this thing starts out as a B as a healing spell, but as you go up in tiers, it becomes an A, right? As you upcast this, that is a decent chunk of healing for up to 6 of you. Or in the middle of combat, there again, if there's that scenario, which is going to happen probably at least a few times in every campaign, where your allies are enmeshed in melee with a bunch of undead, and you want to blast the undead and heal your allies, you can blast them, make this like a 5th level spell slot, which would make it 8d6 with a 5th level spell slot. So you're going to blast the undead for 8d6 radiant damage and heal your allies for 8d6 hit points. That's very strong. So it's going to be an A as it ranks up as you go up in spell levels. Spell slot level. Then we have Crooked Ward. Here we go. It's 10-minute duration. This one takes your concentration. It's an action to cast. You touch a surface, and then it emanates as a 30-foot area around from that point. I don't know why they said they didn't really need it. It seems like unnecessary overhead to say you touch a surface and then it emanates from there. You could just said choose a point in range. I don't know. I don't know. I guess it's a point you'd have to be within touching range of yourself, I guess. Anyway, you touch an immobile surface and mark a symbol that causes agony in twisted creatures. An invisible 30-foot radius sphere springs out from the point you touch, and each aberration, fey, fiend, monstrous, or undead. So these are what it is calling the twisted creatures, which makes sense. In the sphere has disadvantage on ability checks and attack rolls always while they're in the area. No saving throw. When an affected creature enters the sphere for the first time on turn or starts its turn there, it must make a wisdom saving throw or have the frightened condition. So there is a save. They do not get a save against the disadvantage on their attack rolls and ability checks. They only get a save versus the frightened condition until the start of their next turn. And they have to resave every time they enter the area or end their turn or start their turn in the area. So it's pretty good. And then you can upcast it to increase the duration. And if you use a 6th level or higher spell slot, it becomes a 24-hour duration and no concentration is required. So it upcasts pretty well. Now, I think this is a really good spell, but there are better spells. Like if you think, okay, Hypnotic Pattern or the Fear spell or even the Confusion spell, which is a 4th level, those probably lock down these creatures better. And those can lock down any kind of creature that, the conditions work on. Although Confusion doesn't use any condition. Even Tasha's Hideous Laughter, cast at 3rd level, can lock down 3 creatures regardless of creature type, any creature type, and there is no condition that affects it. No condition immunity affects Tasha's Hideous Laughter. So there's a lot of things that make this potentially better. If this one worked on any creature type, I would have given it an A. But it only works on these 5 creature types, which is 5 of the most common monsters you're going to fight. So it's more than half of the creatures I think you're going to encounter, except humanoids. It really depends on your campaign. If you're in an urban campaign, you're going to fight humanoids most of the time. I don't know. It depends. So I'm going to give it a B to start with. But the fact that once you cast it with a 6th level spell slot, it lasts 24 hours and no concentration, I'm going to bump it up to an A, right? This could protect your camp for a day. This could protect your base for a day. You could be like setting, you could walk into a dungeon, cast this, upcast it, and then just like use Thunderclap to be drawing monsters to you. Just like keep drawing monsters to you, aggroing them, getting them to follow you back to this area, and then you fight in this area, and they're going to have all disadvantage all the time. I think there are some very powerful uses of this. So I'm going to give it an A once you reach tier 3. Then we have Harvest Moonglow. This is a 3rd level spell. Lasts 1 hour, no concentration. Action to cast, 60-foot range, 20-foot radius sphere, which is the same area as a fireball. And this is available to rangers. I mean, clerics and druids too, but rangers, which makes this interesting. Rangers do need some cool spells. You call upon the light of the harvest moon to illuminate a 20-foot radius sphere centered on a point within range. The area is bathed in silvery dim light. So if you're in darkness, this creates dim light only, which is a good use case for now wanting to use like Shadow Blade, right? Which would have advantage on every attack roll now. Creatures and objects with the invisible condition in light become visible as translucent, shimmery images. Note that this is friendly fire, so if you have invisible allies, they're automatically revealed. Yes, it says they become visible. So I guess your invisibility spell will still continue. You just temporarily lose the invisible condition, even though your invisibility spell is still going. If you step out of the area, then you would gain your invisible condition back while your invisibility spell continues. Although the way hidden state works from the hide action, if you lose the invisible condition and you are made visible, you just lose your hide state. You'd have to re-hide once you leave the area. All right, when one of your allies within the light is within the light, it can use a bonus action to absorb some of the light and gain 2d6 temporary hit points. When I first read this, I thought I just read mentally that it healed you 2d6 hit points and not gave you 2d6 temporary hit points. And I was like, what the? For 1 hour, you can stand. If you stand in it for 1 hour, that's 120 d6 points of healing. This is a super broken 3rd level spell. S2. Anyway, and then I went back and reread it. Yeah, no, it's temporary hit points. Okay, so that makes this a good spell, not a broken spell. Because temporary hit points don't stack. So even if you stand there for a whole hour, you're never going to have more than at most 12 temporary hit points. You can upcast it, and it increases the temporary hit points you gain by 1d6 for each spell slot level above 4, which can also be really strong. So it's going to be an A, and particularly that's strong because while it is becoming more and more common that there are sources of temporary hit points, there are not a lot of ways to make them give you a single source or a single burst of a lot of temporary hit points. And since they don't stack, it doesn't matter if you get 25 sources of temporary hit points between 5 and 7 temporary hit points, right? Because you're just going to get the highest of any of those, which would be 7. So if you can have a single source that's going to give you, and you upcast is like, I don't know, 7th level, that would be 6d6 temporary hit points. You stand there long enough, you're going to end up with eventually 36 temporary hit points from that spell. So this is an interesting spell where you can cast it in combat and then just stay there out of combat, waiting until you get the max. And yes, DMs, I encourage you to not sit there and roll and make all the players roll until they get the max. I would just say after 1 minute, you all have the max. Just hand wave it and move on. That would be a lot of rolling and a waste of time, and nobody's going to have fun doing that. So this is a decent spell. I'll give it an A. And I think it remains an A as you upcast it too. Then, and it has a minor control effect. That's the removing temporarily suppressing, I'm going to call it, the invisible condition. Then we have the isolation spell. This one's creepy and cool. Creepy, cool, without being gory. So it's 1 minute duration with concentration, action to cast 120-foot range, wisdom saving throw, and it's a single creature. So one creature that you can see within range must make a wisdom saving throw or have its mind shrouded in the dread of total isolation. For the duration, all other creatures have the invisible condition toward the target, and the target can't see through, even with blind sight, true sight, or magic, such as see invisibility spell, and the target can't perceive in any way other creatures with any of its other senses. So you just absolutely cannot perceive other creatures, which is cool. Because normally if you only have lost your, if you have blindness and so you still have your other senses, you can still find creatures by making like perception checks, and you're locating them with your sense of touch, your sense of, feeling the wind of them passing on your skin. You can hear where they're moving, things like that. No, this one says can't perceive with other senses in any way. The target moves around other creatures or otherwise rationalizes not moving through spaces occupied by them, such as perceiving a door or as closed, or as a wall if another creature is standing in the way. The target still feels pain but can't identify the source of any injury caused by another creature. The target repeats saving throw at the end of each of his turns, ending the spell on itself on a success. So I think this is an interestingly strong spell, right? The only way they could attempt to even attack somebody is just guess a square, right? They cannot find people's locations through any perception checks. They just have to guess squares. And then if they happen to guess right, then they can make an attack roll with disadvantage in that square, right? It kind of, and they can't use any spells that require sight, which is a lot of spells, right? A lot of spells require sight. So this is a pretty strong shutdown, but it's not the same as just like hold person, right? Hold person, they're paralyzed, and it doesn't matter if they can see or not because they are completely locked down, no actions, no movement. They're just done. Now this works on anything, right? Not just humanoids like the hold person spell. Also, it's a single target, so I'm going to give it a B relative to the other control spells, and I think it remains a B. I think. I don't know. It might lose value as you go up because they become better single target lockdown spells than this. I think. I don't know. Odaluk's Irresistible Dance, is that better than this? Uh, I don't know. Yeah, let me know what you think in the comments about that rating. All right, Martyr. This is an interesting one. It's like Revivify, but you give the person who has died, you give them your hit points. So if you had 50 hit points when you cast a spell, they gain 50 hit points now, and you drop to 0 with 2 failed death saving throws, and you must immediately make a death save. So if you fail that death save, you immediately die. So you have like a 45% chance, all things being equal, 45% chance to just die when you cast a spell, like all the way dead. And yes, it's 45 because you succeed on a death save at 10 or higher, not 11 or higher, which means you have a 55% chance to succeed. You don't get any like proficiency bonus to this. You don't get any ability score modifier bonuses to this, but any other source of boosting your saves works on this. So that means, Ring of Protection, Cloak of Protection, Paladin's Aura of Protection, a Bless spell on you, any of those will boost your death save and can increase the chance that you live to the next round. And maybe somebody can bring you back with some healing. So, and it also has this, just to really drive this home, you can't regain hit points until after you make the save. So even if you had some other way, some other source of hit points or healing or something like that, that could trigger at simultaneously when you cast a spell, and then since it's your turn, you would choose the order of the simultaneous effects. This one specifically says, doesn't matter if what's going on, you cannot regain hit points until after you make this save, right? You are rolling for death. Which is what a martyr, that's what it means to be a martyr. So there you go. And you have to have a dagger. So maybe you're doing like a Romeo and Juliet thing. And you become a martyr. Yeah, interesting spell. Same level as Revivify. But Revivify is available to clerics and paladins, but not wizards. So wizard buddies out there, if the healer goes down, you maybe need to use this to make sure that you can bring them back. Martyr yourself to bring the healer back, and then the healer can then, save the whole party and bring you back. So yeah, I don't know if I'd pack this on a cleric or paladin, but you should definitely pack it on a wizard, I think. I don't know. It depends on how many healers in the party, right? If you got a full healer in the party and a backup healer, like a paladin in the party who also is like 9th level and's got Revivify as well, then probably not worth it. But if there is just one healer and then no one else has any capability for casting Revivify or anything like that, and you're a wizard, you should take this, right? On the off chance the healer goes down so you can bring them back. All right, Sanctum of the Flock. We got a couple of these Sanctum spells. This one's okay. The other one's problematic. So let's read through this one. It lasts 24 hours. Casting time is 1 minute. Transmutation, and it creates this 20-foot sphere area. So you create a 20-foot radius sphere of faint shimmering light centered on a point within range. You and a number of creatures of your choice up to your spellcasting ability modifier, which means your 3rd level, you probably have at least a +4. And it's you plus those other creatures. So it'd be you plus 4 creatures, which means 5 creatures. Most parties are 5. So when you max out your spellcasting ability score at level 8 or 12, then it's going to be you plus 5 creatures. And that'll definitely be the whole party. Anyway, that seems like a lot of overhead. They should have just said you and your allies, as far as I'm concerned, or 6 creatures. Just call it 6 creatures. Forget that small range of, well, it's everybody but one person. Anyway, you can absorb empowering magic from the sphere when any of the chosen creatures finishes a long rest in the area. They have to finish a long rest in the area to gain any benefit. The sphere vanishes, and those creatures gain 2d10 temporary hit points, and for the remainder of the duration, they have advantage on charisma checks that use one of their skill proficiencies. So it's not all charisma checks, it's just they have advantage on charisma checks that they are proficient with. So if you are not proficient in deception, you do not benefit from this. Chosen creatures who don't finish a long rest in the sphere gain no benefit. So this is strange, all right? So the way, and it lasts 24 hours. The way you do it is at the end of an adventuring day, right before you're about to take a long rest, cast this. Everybody long rests in it. They benefit from it, so they're going to finish the long rest the next day and start with 2d10 temporary hit points, which will last till the start of their next long rest. So it's going to last all day, and they have this advantage on charisma checks. 2d10 temporary hit points can be an average of 11. That's nice to start with, but there are a lot of features that can give you that many temporary hit points to start, at the end of a rest anyway. So I don't think that's like broken or super powerful. It's good. It's just not super powerful. The advantage on charisma checks is solid, but you never know if you're going to be in a social encounter in a day. So you're doing this and you may or may not even benefit from it. But if you get into a social encounter, this is pretty good. And it's going to give everybody who did it. So even like the monk and barbarian trolls in the party who are going to be bad at, social encounters, they're going to get advantage and they're going to be helping a little bit, which is nice. So I think this is an A. I'm going to give it an A for support because you could boost, you're boosting allies' charisma checks. You're giving some temporary hit points. I'm going to give it an A for face because you can boost your own as well. And a C for survival. And that's because when you give yourself those temporary hit points, it's like a C's worth of temporary hit points as a third level spell. I don't think that's particularly strong enough, so it's going to be a C. But I think this is an A all the way through. It does have a material component that is consumed, 25 gold pieces, which is, okay, not terrible. And you should be able to afford that at level 5, which is when you would first get access to this if you're like a bard or a paladin, bard or cleric full cast, right? The paladin's not going to get access to this till level 9. Then we have Scarlet Dawn, which is an interesting name. I love that they came up with these very evocative names. Very cool. All right. Action to cast, 120-foot range. It's a 20-foot radius cylinder, and the cylinder is 60 feet high, and it creates crimson light in that area. Each creature in the area that isn't a construct or undead makes a Constitution saving throw, taking 4d10 necrotic damage on a failed save, or half as much on a successful one. Constructs and undead in the area heal 4d10 hit points. So this is a strange spell. If any of the spell's area overlaps with an area of darkness created by a spell of level 3 or lower, that other spell is dispelled. So it has this effect like the daylight spell does, which is a bit of a control effect. And if you're facing darkness or Hunger of Hadar or things like that, you can cast this spell and just wipe those spells out. Just gone, they're dispelled. Because it doesn't say it removes the darkness, it says the other spell is dispelled. So without making an ability check, you just poof, get rid of Hunger of Hadar. Done. Poof, the darkness spell is gone. The damage increases by 1d10 per, and the level of the spell that can be dispelled increases by 1 for each spell slot level above 3rd. So that's nice because you can't upcast daylight to do that, but you can upcast this. So if you're facing like a 4th or 5th level spell that creates darkness, you can just upcast as the 5th level and boom, auto dispel those as well. Which is again a decent, when you need it, is an A or even S tier control effect when you need it. The problem is that's gonna not come up very often. It's like an uncommon occurrence that you're facing a monster casting Hunger of Hadar or a darkness spell. And it does say it has to be a spell, not a magical effect. So if they create darkness without casting a spell, this won't dispel it as written. Now, if your DM rules that it will dispel it, I think that's fine. The interesting part is the damage, okay? So this is going to have friendly fire, right? If you cast this on your allies, it's going to hurt them unless they are constructs on undead. So Warforged are constructs now, and I can't remember, is a Dampier undead now? I don't think so, but I feel like we have at least 1 or 2 undead species now. It might be in partner content. So if your frontliners are those, you could blast your enemies and heal your allies. This is kind of like the inverse of that Summer Winds spell at 2nd level. So it has all the same kind of like situational, this could be S tier. Most of the time, probably not, right? It really depends. You have to build your party around that, or have like a bunch of summons that are constructs, right? There is a summon construct spell. You can have summon undead. You can have animate dead. If your front line is consisting of all those creatures and the enemies are not those creature types, this is a great spell to be dropping in that situation. That's at least A tier, if not S. But those are not the most common situations, not the most common party builds. So I'm going to give this a C on average, and it's going to remain a C all the way through. Just remember that if you build the right situation around it, this is a very strong spell and one you might want to pack around. If you think that you're going to run into darkness and darkness type effects, but probably not vampires, this is actually better than the daylight spell, because then you can at least dispel the darkness and blast the enemies. All right, moving on to Call of the Wild. This one is strange. All right, it's a 1-minute duration with concentration. Action to cast self 100-foot emanation, okay, and a wisdom saving throw. So you unleash a primal howl, so you got to howl at the moon, and then that calls lesser creatures to your command. Each beast of any CR, they could be a higher CR than you. You're at least level 7 to cast a spell. I guess if there's a giant ape in range who is CR 8, it still calls them. So I don't know why they say lesser creatures, right? Anyway, each beast in the area in the 100-foot emanation originating from you when you cast a spell must make a wisdom saving throw. On a failed save, the target has the charm condition and it can understand your commands and it follows them. So it is like dominate beast. And it follows them on its next turn to the best of its ability. On your subsequent turns, you can take the magic action to issue a new command. On a successful save, the target has the charm condition until the start of your next turn, but you have no additional ability to command it. The howl is audible for 300 feet. So you're going to announce your presence within 300 feet, aggro, bad things. But you're going to also summon all beasts to you. So the reason I'm going to give this one a C is because it's situational. There might not be beasts around you. There might not be beasts within 100 feet. Like if you're in a dungeon, good chance there's no beasts. If you're outside in a forest, there probably is some beasts, but there's a good chance there's just going to be wolves, right? The way that this is, I think this is a lot better than Dominate Beast. Dominate Beast only dominates a single target, and if you're in combat with them, they have advantage. So it's like a doubly kind of sucky spell. But if you happen to be, I don't know, like the enemy's got a giant ape or a Tyrannosaurus Rex on their side, and they're like, ha ha ha, we're going to kill you with our giant ape Tyrannosaurus Rex, you can cast this to potentially take control of both their giant ape and their Tyrannosaurus Rex and their everything that they've got on their side, a bunch of dinosaurs. It could be all kinds of things. And you take control of all of them, and now you've turned everything to your side. In that case, this is S tier, right? At the very least, they're charmed for one turn. Right? On a successful save, it's charmed until the start of your next turn. So they're charmed for one round, which means they can't attack you, at least if you do this. That's the very least that can happen. So yeah, it should be rated as a control spell too, right? Because if you're in combat with some of these things, you can control them. It's just a C because it's only beasts. All right. So in those scenarios where you're fighting, like I said, giant apes, Tyrannosaurus Rex, big dinosaurs. I mean, and there's no upper limit on it. So we have the book, Dr. Drolin's Dictionary of Dinosaurs, that added a bunch of dinosaur beast stat blocks that go all the way up to like CR 18. Yeah, you could cast this, control all of them. And in those kind of scenarios, this is like an S tier spell. Okay. But if you're not fighting beasts and there are no beasts in the area, this is a completely useless spell. So I'm going to give it a C, but let me know your thoughts in the comments of where do you think this thing should be ranked higher or not. Then we have Consuming Pyre. This one is an interesting one. I read through it when I did the Castigation Paladin from this book. 1 minute duration, concentration, action to cast, 90-foot range, dexterity saving throw. So you cause a creature that you can see within range to burst into consuming relentless flames. The target must make a dexterity saving throw. On a failed save, the target takes 2d8 fire damage and 2d8 necrotic or radiant damage. You choose which of those two. And the radiant flames linger. On a successful save, it takes half as much damage only. While the flames linger, the creature takes the damage again at the start of each of its turns. The target and another creature within reach of the target can take an action to allow the target to repeat the saving throw, ending the spell on a success. So note that they do not get an auto resave. The only way they get a resave is somebody spending an action to put out the flames. So this is actually an interesting control spell as well. A creature killed by the damage from the spell is reduced to ash along with any non-magical equipment it is wearing or carrying. So like it just incinerates them. All right, so if you're in a chase scene, right, this could be very strong because you would hit them with the spell and then be chasing them. And since they're having to run from you and they're going to need to use their dash action to keep running from you because you're going to also be using the dash action, or at least some of your allies are using the dash action to chase them. If they don't use the dash action, you will definitely catch them. And if they don't use an action to try to put out, the flames, they never get a resave. So they're like stuck. Eventually this is going to kill them. 1 minute is going to be 40 D8 damage. Not a lot of creatures, you're level 7, not a lot of creatures you're encountering at level 7 can handle 40 D8 damage. So this is an interesting spell in that way. So in some circumstances, it's, like a chase scene, right? You're like, dude, I landed it on you. You better stop now. The only chance you have to live is you stop, we put the flames out and tie you up. But if you're not in a chase scene, they don't have to run away. They might have other allies, at the very least, you're burning one or more actions to put the flames out, because if they don't put the flames out, they're eventually going to take 40 D8 damage. So you're at least burning some actions. So I'm going to give it a B. It's a single target. There are other things that are going to do more damage faster. But between the interesting combo of these two things, I think it's still a B level spell. So I'm going to give it a B for control, B for single target range damage dealing. Then we have Sanctum of the Shepherd. This is the other Sanctum spell, and this one is a problem. All right, and let me get it all on the screen. Okay, so again, last 24 hours, 1 minute to cast, same kind of thing. You create a 20-foot radius sphere, a faint shimmering light centered on a point in range. You and a number of creatures, same kind of thing, can absorb the protective magic from the sphere when any of the chosen creatures finish a long rest in the area. So they have to long rest in the area. So you cast this the night before, right before you take a long rest. Then you rest in it. Of course, you get your spell slot back now. And then after they finish long rest, the sphere vanishes, and those creatures that are affected gain a +1 bonus to their AC for the remainder of the duration, which is 24 hours. So that's you cast it right before the long rest. That takes 8 hours. So they got 16 hours of a flat +1 AC. The chosen creatures who don't finish long rest in the sphere gain no benefit. All right, and it requires adamantine or powdered diamond powder worth 200 gold pieces, which it consumes. So the reason why this one is problematic is this, right? When you are level 7 and you first get access to this, you have one 4th level spell slot. And that means you have to make sure you have that 4th level spell slot available to cast this. So if you're going to have 2 adventuring days back to back, you have to not use your 4th level spell slot that first day, save it, then cast this at the end of the day. And now you've got this spell benefiting the entire party for the next day. And because of bounded accuracy, a flat +1 to AC is a big deal, right? Because of everything else going on, just increasing everybody's AC by 1 is a big deal. But now you've got your spell slot back, okay? But it was still at level 7 specifically, it was still an interesting choice, right? Because that first day you had to not use your 4th level spell slot so that you would have it available to do this. And that is a kind of tough decision. There might have been scenarios where like, do I use it? Oh, do I save it for Sanctum of the Shepherd? Do I, use my 4th level spell slot for, Vitriolic Sphere or whatever it is? So it was a tough decision. And at that point, right at level 7, I think this is an A tier spell, specifically at level 7 for a full caster. Plus is at 200 gold pieces, which at level 7 is you're probably gonna feel that pinch of expending 200 gold pieces just to cast it. But pretty quickly, just by level 10, right? You're still in tier 2, but it's the end of tier 2. Just 3 levels later, you now have 3 4th level spell slots and 2 5th level spell slots. So instead of costing 100% of your maximum spell slots at level 7, it's now 20% of your maximum spell slots at level 10, just 3 levels later. And now that's kind of a trivial amount of resource expenditure. Keeping one of your 4th level spell slots when you have 2 5th level spell slots and 3 4th level spell slots, not a big deal. It's probably easy to do. You probably have that most of the time anyway. And also, the amount of money you gain, usually, not always, depends on the campaign, depends on the DM, you usually gain a lot of money between levels 7 and 10. Going from level 7 to 10 is actually kind of a long time in the campaign. You're likely to have so much money that you may not even notice 200 gold pieces. You might have, thousands and thousands of gold pieces. You're like, sure, why not? 200 gold pieces, no problem. So by level 10, still in tier 2, you're at this point where it's almost a trivial amount of resource expenditure, and you get your spell slot back the next day. So it ends up being, okay, it cost you 200 gold pieces, which might be, I don't care, and a 4th level spell slot that you saved from the previous day, which might be, I don't care. Maybe you weren't even adventuring the previous day. So now and then you have your spell slot back. So on the day after you cast this, you have, for no spell slot expenditures, a +1 to the whole party's AC. And you could just do this indefinitely. So it just turns into by about level 10, you could just read this as the whole party has +1 AC all the time. Done. That's it. And for no spell slot costs. And that's where it becomes a problem. So by level 10, I'm going to call this S tier. But once you get into tier 3, it's even a lesser cost to you. Now you've got 6th level spell slots. You're getting more 5th level spell slots. This is S1 because it's just a trivial amount of cost to you. And the whole party gets this stacking +1 AC modifier that stacks with everything else they're doing, every other magic item they've got, every ability they've got, all the armor they're wearing, all the shields they're using, all the other spells they're casting, and it's just too much. So this is an S1 spell and will be banned in my games. Now, if you want to use it in your games, I think it's very easy to fix a spell and just say, instead of saying you rest, you cast the night before and rest, you say when you finish a long rest, you cast it right then, so that you have to expend the spell slot on the day of. And I think that makes it an S tier spell all the way through instead of an S1. And then it's okay to use because you've at least expended a 4th level spell slot every day you want to use this. It's still pretty strong, but I'd give it an S instead of an S1 for that. And the last spell for Crooked Moon is Lucky Charm. Me lucky charms. All right, this is the 5th level spell. The duration is 1 hour with concentration. It's an action cast. Range is touch. You touch a tiny non-magical object, infusing it with a portion of your own luck for the duration. While another creature carries the object, that creature has advantage on all d20 tests. That's attack rolls, ability checks, saving throws, and yes, initiative is an ability check, so that means initiative too. All d20 tests. and you have disadvantage on all d20 tests. So it's interesting. All right, this is a really strong buff for your ally. It's like Foresight, but for 1 hour and as a 5th level spell instead of a 9th level spell for 8 hours. And Foresight doesn't take concentration. This one takes concentration. So, but yeah, for 5 levels, it's a 5th level, 4 spells levels lower, right? From 9th to 5th. You can cast this at level 9. Foresight requires you to be level 17 before you cast it. Okay, so this is a big deal for whoever you're buffing, and it's pretty painful on you. So if you are any kind of martial, like a half caster, I would not cast this, right? Like paladins and rangers have access to this. You're a martial. You do not want disadvantage on all of your attack rolls because you're a martial. You need to be making attack rolls. So even though they gave this to bards and paladins, I wouldn't use it unless you're in some kind of, I don't know, some kind of situation where you're horribly wounded, you're dying, and you're out of the fight. Then you cast this, give it to somebody else, and now they have advantage on everything, and then you just kind of hang back trying to heal people and heal yourself, and you never make any more attack rolls. That's like the edge case for like a ranger and a paladin. But for a bard or a warlock, particularly a warlock who's not spec'd as a Eldritch Blaster warlock, right? Then you cast this on an ally who is a martial, ideally a monk or a fighter who are making a lot of attack rolls, right? They're just going to start crushing things. And then you focus on casting saving throw spells, right? Because this does not hurt your saving throw spells at all. It's going to hurt your initiative your initiative roll because you're going to roll a disadvantage. That's not the end of the world. But then just cast saving throw spells, and then it's not really affecting you anymore. That is the right way to use this, like the best way to use this in general. So I'm going to give it an A as a support spell for that, and it's going to remain an A all the way through. But you'll notice this over here as self-buff F, which I've only used this designation one other time, and that was for that mythal whatever feat from Heroes of Faerun is just terrible. Okay. And this means, like normally a D means it adds a small amount of functionality of this category, right? Like Mirrored Agony adds a small amount of support. Okay. And that's what the D means. F means this is a net negative for you. This is a negative for you. And that's what I'm trying to say here is as a self buff, it's a negative, right? You are strongly debuffing yourself for a really strong buff on your ally. And if it weren't for this debuff, I would have given this straight up an S tier. This would have been an S tier spell. Yeah, S tier. And it's that debuff that brings us down to an A because as far as the overall party goes, right, it's not that much of a net power increase because one person got debuffed and one person got buffed. Now, like I said, if you make it so that the person debuffed is only casting saving throw spells, then the amount of debuff is smaller than the amount of buff, and that's how you get to an A. Otherwise, this would be a wash, like a C or D kind of spell, which is what it would be like a paladin or ranger who are focused on being martials and are ready and able to be a martial and fight in a party. Then them casting this on another martial is kind of like a net wash for the party. Like it's a D for everybody. I don't know. I'm sure there's situations where maybe the paladin or ranger, like it's a Oath of Vengeance paladin who has the ability to easily give themselves advantage, and then their advantage would be canceled out by that disadvantage. So then they're just attacking with straight rolls, and then give somebody else advantage. That's a net win for the party, but probably like a B level net win. Or maybe it's a ranger with the archery fighting style that gives a flat +2, and they just have so many flat bonuses, right? Because you can get a +3 bow. I mean, you'd be level 17. So you got like a +3 bow, then you have +3 arrows, and the magic bonuses from arrows and bows stack. So you've got a +6 to hit from your magic weapons. Then you have a +2 from the archery fighting style. That's a +8. Then you've got your proficiency bonus +6. What are we at now? 14. Then you've got your dexterity, which is a 20 at this point. So that's another 5. Is that a +19 to hit? Yeah. And then there could be other bonuses you get on top of that. So if you have that, if your flat attack modifier is that high, then disadvantage doesn't hurt you that much. So maybe that's another edge case where this is good for somebody who can just stack that much of their of their flat attack modifier. Anyway, Lucky Charm. It's a cool spell. All right, that's it for this one. Thanks for watching. If you don't have enough D&D in your life, you can check the video description and find a link to join my Discord or find me on Start Playing Games, or the link to the Google Sheet the Google Drive where the Google Sheet is that I was just showing you that has like everything I've ever rated. It's got the classes, subclasses, the partner content, the feats, the spells, magic items I've done. Everything's in there. And you're welcome to use that. I hope you do. That's why I create it, is for the community. It's a community resource. A lot of people have contributed to help me refining these ratings, and I love input. The more people that get involved, the better it gets. So if you have thoughts, let me know in the comments, or you can join my Discord. I've got a whole channel dedicated to just discussing the ratings of these things. And at least once a week, it seems, adjust a rating based on community input, if not more often. So yes, please, the more people get involved, the better this gets. Thanks. And you're welcome to make copies of it. And that's what allows you to filter and sort it, which is the best way to use it. So go ahead and make copies of it. But you'll just have to make a copy like every day because I add more stuff every day. I don't know. Anyway, D&D is a game. Remember to be cool when you play D&D because it's a game and the only point is to have fun. All right. Fun with your friends. Okay. Catch you next time.